Welcome back to another episode of the Autonomy podcast. And this week I've got another guest on, another client of ours who's doing extremely well. So I want to share Suraj's journey, what he's doing now, what he looks to do in the future, and some of the problems that he had to go through to be able to get in amazing shape. You know, he's doing super, super well at the moment. And to be able to hear the context of someone going through the journey, I think is only going to help other people going through very similar journeys to make amazing change too. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing good, thanks, Nave. Not too bad. How are you keeping?
Yeah, good man, good man. Like I was saying to you just a minute ago before I recorded, like the Dubai heat's getting to me with my red face, so I need to put some sunscreen cream on or something.
It's all right. Still looking sharp out there. I expected you to come out in a basketball in one of your jerseys.
Yeah, I opted for that, but then I'm with a friend here who we went for a nice little coffee today and did some work. So she was looking great, so I thought I need to put on a shirt. I can't go around wearing a basketball jersey while everyone else is, glammed up a little bit. So
No, you'll be putting it to shame then.
yeah, literally. Cool. So yeah, I just wanted to get you on, talk about the journey. So like, just give us a run through of like, we spoke in December last year about you coming on board. It did come on for a little while, but like, so in that time frame, you got yourself a new job. So what type of job do you do? What type were your goals when coming on board with us?
So yeah, so as you said, spoke in December. It was something that I was interested in because I got one of my you trained one of my friends, Anisha. So all she could do was say good things about how the journey's gone and what it did for her. In terms of when I joined, I'd been in my job for about 6 weeks, I think. And that got me to a point when I was like, you know what, I'm ready. Because a lot of it was just training and it was just long days and early mornings, late nights and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I work for an investment company, work in their client services department, speaking to customers all day. So I haven't been in a sedentary job for this long in a while. It's been about 2 years. So it's definitely one where like you forget just sitting down all day is just taxing in itself. But really enjoy it. The sort of the reach for me is huge in terms of potential, in terms of what I can learn, in terms of where it's going to take me. And the journey itself, the reason that I wanted to do this was I'd spent probably a long period of time just trying to work out what's best for me. Spent a lot of last year in lockdown. I spent a lot of time either running or training, but I always knew that I ate clean food, but I think my portion sizes were the biggest one, which I never knew how much was to correctly eat. So I wasn't actually seeing like a reduction either in definition or around I was just seeing fat loss actually. And I think I'd gotten to one of my lowest point around the top side of the 80s, around 82, and it was there I was getting stuck. And that's why then I reached out and was just like, look, I wanted to take it further. And since having a coach, having that initial chat with yourself, then going up working with Declan on board, and then just running with it, and it's been so good. Like now to think back, beginning of March till now, it's been a long journey, but one that like I've enjoyed throughout, even with sort of all the changes that we've gone through.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good to hear. And like, I always like to get people on who aren't working with me as well. So like they're working with the wider team. We've got a fantastic team on board. I don't know if but I used to work with Declan and me, learn how to fold towels together when we first had our first PT jobs together. That's how I know him back in the day. We basically came up through the ranks in different places, and wherever I went, he normally followed. So he's like a really good friend. So like everyone that's on board in terms of the coaching staff are all friends as opposed to just colleagues or people that work for me individually. So it's always nice to hear that. I already knew they were going to do a good job, but it's always nice to hear when they do that too. So like, what are the results that you've got so far? Let's talk kilos. Let's talk stats, like training wise. Let's talk body weight first, and then let's talk about training wise. How are those things going for you?
So body weight, we started off at 82.2, and that was back in 17th of March, I think it was. Last week reached a low of 70.6. So down just shy of 12 kilos over this period. And it's not been like drastic. We've sort of taken it gradually with sort of a really good training program in terms of reduction in calories, obviously first from what I was not normally eating without tracking. And then I think we were on that for about 3 months. and then we did another reduction. We did a reduction down to about 1500, and have been on that since. I think after a lot of conversation with Declan, like knowing what my schedule's been like, and since lockdown has lifted, I work in the wedding industry as well, so it is not, my weekends aren't based at home. They're literally based driving up and down the country from Glasgow to Southampton, performing at events. So that's probably the hardest part, is staying on track at the house when I haven't got time to prepare.
Yeah, no, they're really difficult. When the weekends away, or just generally weekends that are unstructured, are super, super difficult. And like for you, I imagine that's late nights as well, and in different hotels and stuff, or different places that are only gonna.
Hotels. It means driving like up and down all the time. So like, I remember saying to him that Bank Holiday weekend in August was a case of Friday night, finished the wedding at I think about 2 a.m, got up again at 6, got in the car, went to Glasgow, stayed up there, up again at 5, half 5 to drive back down the next morning, and then literally just traveling to different venues. Like, we don't really get a chance just to cook, or there's certain times I go and take my food, but on that occasion and others, it's just, you haven't got the time. If you literally starting from Friday night until Sunday night, it's there's certain times when I think ahead, and other times where if you get just shafted with late night ones, you just have to try and do the best that you can whilst on the road.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Like, applying effort is probably the key fundamental to anything. Even if you get, as you say, get like shafted in certain situations where you're like, I haven't prepped, or it's no proactivity. You don't know what food there, you don't know what's coming up, but you just got to do as best as you can, right? So let's just talk about the situations of those. So like, you've lost 12 kilos, you've done a really good job, and you wouldn't have been able to do that if you wouldn't have some level of like control on those weekends as well. So what type of, like, for other people that may have probably not as busy schedules on the weekends as you, but like have less proactive, more reactive situations, what type of stuff have you been doing at weekends, at the weddings or before the weddings, to kind of make sure that you come away with some fruit to your labor by the week after or the week after that?
So what I'll always try and do is think, right, what times when I know what the weddings are, I'll try and plan, right, what time do I have to leave? I'll think, right, these are the times. If I can't have my breakfast, then I'll just take a shake with me in the car when I'm driving. If I can somehow afford to have breakfast, then I'll either one, have it, or two, just push that meal back, and I'll literally just continue like my fast until I get to a point when I'm like, you know what, now I'll start and eat. And then when I get to the weddings, I'm like, right, I'll hit like just chicken tikka, hit the salad, and just try and have like a portion of that. Stay away from like the fried food, stay away from like the rice, the roti, the curries and everything. And obviously when we're at the weddings and everything, I don't sit down for the whole time, so I'm still like walking around the venue. So I try and get like some kind of what's the word, just try and move around a fair bit. And obviously when I'm performing and stuff, like I end up coming off stage dripping, so I'm like, okay, at least I've got some sort of resemblance of kind of a workout there. And then I just stay hydrated. Literally, I've just always got my water bottle full with me in the car. That's the biggest thing. That's like number one. I've got that, and probably like a banana or some fruit, like a fruit bowl with me. So if I do need it, then I've got that in the car.
Oh, that's perfect. And then from like a training perspective during the weeks, how has your progress been from that side of things?
Training wise, it's been really good. The program that we've been on has been started off for the first month was home workouts because gyms weren't open at that point. So that was based on like using my dumbbells. I think I had max 12 aside, so I just maxed them out, did everything I could. And then as soon as gyms opened, we rewrote the training program and just took it from there. And it's been a case of strength has increased in pretty much every body part. Chest is, I haven't got my books upstairs and stuff, and even the app. But like between lat pull downs, like back's definitely strengthened up, shoulders can lift a lot heavier now. Form is still key, which is like if I'm struggling, then I'll just drop it down and just continue that tempo, that time and attention. and take it from there. But yeah, training wise, really enjoying it, and it's become a part of my lifestyle where I'm just like, you know what, if I don't get a chance to train, I'm like, oh man, I need to fit it in. And this has been the only week where my body's just literally, because it's been super busy from Friday night onwards, I've been not even at home more than 5 hours. And that's literally just my sleeping time where I'm like, you know what, I haven't got the time. So when I have been able to do anything, I'm like, you know what, I can just let me get a walk in, let me move a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I won't be able to get like a full 50-minute to an hour workout in. So I'm like, something is better than nothing in this case.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of my favorite sayings. You gotta, if as opposed to that effort that we just spoke about before, something is always better than nothing. And if it's a walk, it's better than sitting on your ass. A workout is better than nothing. 10,000 steps is better than five is better than two is better than zero. So in all of those scenarios, we want to make sure that that's the viewpoint and that's the methodology you use at all points. So that's really, really key for sure. When you're going through now, like you're going through your journey and you're 12 kilos down, you must have had some struggles and some things that you had to work on when starting. So like, if you don't mind sharing, like when you came on board, you wanted to lose weight. What was the biggest realization and the biggest like problem that you and Declan had to solve?
Biggest problem was nutrition was going to be probably the key. It was never a fact that I was eating bad. It was a fact that I was going to have to make some serious changes in terms, well, not serious changes, but definitely make some changes within the portions and the types of like meat and that I eat. Normally that would have been chicken, or there was probably more lamb that I was eating at that point. But obviously then that one being more fatty meant less volume. So I was like, well, so we ended up changing the lamb for turkey. And then chicken breast, and then I removed thighs pretty much out of the way, because again, in terms of like the calorie side of things, it was a case of I'd rather just eat the leaner so I can just eat more. So that was kind of the main thing, nutrition. Obviously gyms were closed, but we could train at home, so there was never a problem there. I think it was just a case of realizing what I can actually do if I set my mind to it. It always got into a point when I thought, oh, this is like where I can get to. And we were like, you know what, like there's so much further that we can push the body, not exerting it to like ridiculous proportions, but even just taking it step by step. And what we've achieved sort of like together and with his help, like has been something which would have taken me ages to do myself.
Oh, that's amazing. Let's go on that volume thing. So you spoke a lot about like making some better choices for more voluminous food. So like what was happening? Were you getting hungry, or were you just realizing that you get more food if you have higher volume food sources? Like what was the key to that? What did it help you with?
Helped me realize that I can actually eat more of one type of food than just the other. Plus that if I was having lamb, instead of having like, let's say if it was the size of a burger, I'd have to have half that burger if once we started to put like a nutrition plan in place. But that's the beauty of sort of having the framework when we sort of spoke about the things that we want, and realized that another thing was actually I always used to just eat sort of snacks, especially when I was just bored. Like if I was just bored in the day, I'm like, that's what I'd reach for, whether it be fruit or whether it be nuts or whatever it could be. It was just, that was where I was reaching for. And we knew that was going to be not a problem, but it was something that we had to be ready for and account for that in my nutrition plan. And that's exactly what we did. So we're like, okay, we stuck to my 3 square meals. And he always asked me like, are you happy with this? I'm like, yeah, these food sources are really good. I'm happy with these. They satiate me. I'm happy to eat. And I would then take that and plan my day accordingly and think, right, when would I want to do this? And even throughout from back then when we started to like now, there's still been times when I'm like changing not what I eat, but when. And like my timings have always changed just to best suit me.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned about the framework, and you mentioned about being able to do swapping those foods and stuff. How is that framework, the swaps document, the stuff that we provide from a nutrition side of things really helped you to probably understand food a little bit better?
That's been like really helpful because it's not just you covering it for like you cover it for all bases in terms of like vegans, veggies, and meat eaters. So there's days when I'll think, or I'll like normally mum will ask if she's like making lentils. She goes, "Do you want some?" I'm just like, "Yeah." So then I'd say, "Right, this is my portion." So it would actually allow me to have the same food as my parents for like 1 or 2 days, and then I can go back into eating and cooking what I want. And because I already know exactly how she makes it, I'm like, you know what, is makes it with like literally next to no oil. The instant pot's an absolute blessing.
Mm.
So it's completely different to cooking that on the hob with like a good number of teaspoons of oil.
Yeah.
And that framework gave me the flexibility to, if I got bored of having like, I don't know, banana and peanut butter or chicken, I was like, right, I can implement like turkey mince, and how much can that do? And it takes out some of the thinking, to not have to sit there and work out calorie per gram or anything like that. It's a case of, right, easy swap, take this out, put that in there, and you're good to go. So once or twice a week, I was making swaps, and I didn't have to consult like Declan on this occasion, like, oh, can I do this? It was a case of the framework's there because at some point you are going to have to make these changes and be accountable yourself. So why not start now?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, everything that you said then is like is music to my ears. It makes me feel like, gives me goosebumps actually, because there's something that we've created, and I'm so glad that it's working for you. For the listeners out there that aren't part of Autonomy, like the goal for us with the swaps document and the nutrition principles that we have is that eventually Suraj and everyone else on Autonomy will be able to go and do by themselves. And with the swaps document, what we give you is different variations of the same calories and different protein sources, carb sources, breakfast options, snacks. So that, let's say, if Suraj went to dinner at a restaurant, he'd have a rough idea of what was an adequate size of portion size for him for protein, or adequate size of portion size for carbs. So every time now Suraj will have rice, he'll see what 55 grams got him at home, and then if he was going to a restaurant, he'll see, oh well, that's 3 times the size as what I had before, and maybe the one that you had at home with 200 calories, and then you look at the rest of the plate and you're like, oh, that's 3 times the amount. That could be 600 calories of rice. So then you start building up this framework in your mind of being like, okay, this is how much calories, or this is what I can swap for, or I can have turkey or lamb if I want to, but I can just have less lamb than chicken. And these type of educational pieces are just super invaluable. You mentioned about your mum cooking and stuff like that. How was the change when you came at home to making those changes? Was there resistance? Was your family on board? What was happening on that side?
Fortunately, they've actually been like really supportive, because they knew that like I've got a passion for cooking anyway. So like I've spent, well, since probably past 5 to 7 years, like I just enjoy cooking like my meals myself. Like I'll always enjoy those home cooked meals that mum makes, or like even now my dad, because he found a newfound love for cooking throughout lockdown. So even he's been rusting up loads of dishes as well. So when we get to eat together, it's great. But there was no resistance. I sat down and spoke to them about what I wanted to do, and they said, okay, they'll be supportive. And they've seen the changes in me massively. Food wise, they sometimes eat the same as I do, sometimes I eat the same as them. But there's also certain days when we'll eat together but not the same food, and they're like, okay, that's fine. They'll never ever say, oh, why don't you eat this? I think only recently, when they've seen me get to a point when it's been like near the bottom end of my like lowest weight, it's a case of, oh, you could have this as a day off or something. I'm like, look, I'm getting so close to where I want to be. I don't want to sort of make the sort of derail now. Like it's already hard enough when I'm not at home on the weekends. Like I think that if I had a schedule which was like literally I was in and around the Midlands, in my case, I didn't have as busy of a schedule, then it would be easier. But like being sort of all over the country, you got to do what you kind of best suited in those situations. At least at home, I can keep on top of my choices. But besides that, like they've been great sort of throughout, and they've seen the changes in me visually, like throughout, because they're always taking the photos for me and everything. They're just noticing like all the changes, subtle changes, and like literally like the body since March to now is like just looks completely different. So they're in shock.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Often we see that we call it the spider web at Autonomy. Have they or any of your family members like started doing more steps or started looking after what they eat because of what you've done?
To a degree, yeah. Dad always, I think my dad, well, mom and dad have both actually started, like mom since lockdown, really enjoyed working out, and they go for walks and that together, and have been pretty much since the last 18 months. But I think my dad has started to ask more questions about, oh, like how could I lose like in this area? And I'm just like, it's not, you're doing everything in terms of activity that you can and fit into your day. But like obviously he doesn't train, but he goes for like long walks, so they're getting at least like 10 to 12,000 steps a day. So I'm like, you're doing adequate steps for like your age and like your lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's just literally probably the types of food that you eat. I think that if it's like the Indian snacks, so obviously you deal with a lot of South Asians, so you know that those snacky things, like just a bowl here, oh yeah, it's only a little bit, but I'm like, it's not, because we don't actually make that at home. It's bought in, so you actually know exactly what's in there.
Yeah. The chevre is my favorite. The chevre from Kenya and then Nairobi, like
yeah, that's banging. That is.
just that's the best stuff. I remember when I went in 2019 and I was with like people, like my clients, but they took me to Masai Mara and they took me around and then they took me to Nairobi. We spent 3 or 4 days there just eating the different foods. Now, like the pav bhaji there was amazing, top notch. I've had pav bhaji in a few different places, but it was just outstanding there. And then when I was leaving, they said, "Oh, you need to take some of the snacks home with you," and I was like, "Of course I do." And I just remember that the snacks never made it home. You know, they never made it home for to anybody else other than me sitting on a flight, like complaining.
Actually, went in a way.
Yeah, literally, because that chevre is like it's like rocket fuel, but it's a mix between you guys get the crunch of things so right, you get the spice of things so right, and the sweetness that comes afterwards as well. Like, you know, anyone says to me like, "Oh yeah, how like what's the best like pleasure based food?" And it's always like the Indian snacks. It's always the foods like that.
Because like, whatever it is, somehow I don't know how they do it, but it's literally always spot on. And we know that's why sometimes I can't just say I'll have a bowl, because I'm like, one will always turn into three.
Yeah.
It's never enough. Like one bowl is just it's not enough to be like, oh, you know what, I actually enjoyed that. You're like, nah, I need a couple more.
Yeah. It's like it's like the way that I don't know if you've ever heard, but like Doritos and Pringles have like such a high level of like research on how to make the perfect crunch and how to manufacture it to a way in which make people want to eat the whole tub or eat the whole bag. With like the snacks that you guys have are just literally like that. Without the research, they're just years and years and years of passed down of like, this tastes good, we really like it, let's keep on eating it.
Keeps them all in business, that does. Whatever they do, you can keep doing it.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Even the homemade stuff that they dry out the certain part for and then put it all together in a box and mix it, they're still amazing as well. But that's why it's so difficult to get people in shape that like that food.
It is tough, and that's why I think like a lot of, especially like our community, it's difficult to, one, make the change, and two, stay on course for the change, because there's always people who are going to be like, there's always family and there's friends, family, whatever, who will always be like, oh, like it's okay, just have a bowl of this. I'm like, if I have one, then like it's, I don't want to have, you've already spent like a week or two getting that, like a couple of bowls of that. And I think from your emails and stuff, like when you write it down and say like, some people just put their finger on the fuck it button, and like that's so easy to do when you're in like that type of environment. It's a case of that you have to just either remove yourself from it or just go, you know what, like I can't now. Like once I'm in a better position, like mentally in like a better headspace, I'll be bringing it back in. But for right now, like I don't want to derail the progress, because otherwise it's just going to set me back a week. And like I know how that feels. Like with a couple of weekends away or something, like a weekend in London can set me back a week's progress. But like me and Declan have spoken about it, and we're just like, look, how do we double down? And it means that like a couple of weekends in a row being back in like one spot makes the difference.
Yeah, and like I think the biggest thing that you said overall there is that I can't now. You should be able to, and you will be able to incorporate that back in. And at some point when you're not dieting, that one bowl of whatever it is will probably satisfy you. But when you're in a diet, when your hunger's going high, when you're like you're restricting yourself to a point where you're like, I need to get this goal. But then that one bowl will take you off course, and then it's the fuck it button that leads to the second, third, fourth bowl, and then the other stuff that's on top, rather than that food being the driver, right? So like it's just like diet. I firmly believe there are diet foods, and then there's foods that you can have during a diet, but they're just not advantageous for your mindset. And they're those type of foods.
No, because otherwise, as you said, it'll just you start and it can easily set someone off.
Yeah, and like because of the conditioning and the culture of how much you have of those particular foods, or people have, it's like one bowl of what we would deem as calorie controlled chevro is not going to be the same as what someone would deem in the household as like a normal bowl. So then the pressure's then on to have another bowl because they feel like you've not had enough, or they want to try and give you more. And that's the beautiful, loving part of the family and the culture, is that they want you to have more, they want you to enjoy it, but at the expense of something that we like to call calories, which is always a difficult spot to try and blend the two, for sure. Speaking on the cultural side of things, you mentioned a little bit before about some of the comments that you were getting at weddings and stuff like that. Do you want to go into that? It's one of the biggest things that for me is the kind of it's kind of a taboo subject, because a lot of people don't want to address it in the room. And I think as the token white boy of the industry, dealing with the South Asians and Indians, we have to talk about it, and definitely not afraid to. So let's talk about the things that people are saying, and the things that how that made you feel. And then what that really means to people's journeys.
So with our community, it's a very, people aren't afraid to speak their minds, but they also have a way, just like with everybody else. He goes, if you lose weight, people will tell you and they go, oh, you've lost too much. But when you put it on, no one says shit. And I'm like, and people always have an opinion. So especially when they think that, oh, you've lost too much weight, you look skinny, they always want to tell you it. I've been told by numerous family members from about, I think, May onwards, and even more so sort of throughout August and September now, where whoever I'm seeing that, I'm not seen them in a long time, like probably 6 to obviously probably 12 months. Some of them I'm not seeing in well over a year. But when they see me, they're like, where's the rest of you? I'm like, look, I'm doing this for me. Don't force this upon anyone. Some people are saying, you look great, keep going. Others are saying, you've lost too much weight, you need to stop now. But I'm like, look, this is my journey. I know where I want to be. I think if we take people's opinion on, we're never going to, someone's always going to have an opinion. I just think, look, you've got your opinion, you say what you want to say, but I'm also going to have it come in one ear and out the other, because I know I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, I don't force my beliefs upon you. No, nothing. And when people who have an opinion, who never said anything to like their kids or their immediate family, decide that they can then put their opinion onto me, I'm like, your opinion means shit to me. Like, it doesn't matter. But I understand how it could happen for a lot of people, where they go, oh, you know what, I'm right. They could be easily swayed.
Yeah.
To go, okay, this is too much now. But I think that if you really want something bad enough, you will just work hard, and you'll be like, look, I take it on board, I understand what you're saying, but you don't know what it's like to be in my shoes, so thanks, but kind of no thanks.
yeah, the no thanks is a good one. They like you said, people, you have to just take it with a pinch of salt, because people will have their opinion, and we deal with this a lot. And like you said, I think some people who have that goal that are really driven will take it like you are, which is like a pinch of salt, and just be like, okay, cool, because no one actually sees you naked, right? So no one's going to know what you want to look like naked, or when you want to look in the mirror and you see what you see, they just see you in a t-shirt or a shirt, and it might not be tailored, it might not be fitted, so they're just probably wearing the same shirt you'd lost 10 kilos before in, and that you may look completely different in that t-shirt, and they're just like seeing you and making that comment. And I also think there's that, when you said the other type of people, the people that take it on board, it's quite a lot of like the females would want that approval of like, you're looking good, you're looking great. But actually, when it comes to the opposite, and when they say negative things, it's almost like they believe the things that the person is saying. which then leads to them derailing and questioning, well, actually, do I look skinny, or, am I going too far? Because they don't really know what their direct goal is. They just want to be happy. They just want to be appreciated. They just want to have that, like, you looking good, or that feel good factor. And when they don't get the feel good factor, because it's actually quite the opposite, they actually go into that spin cycle of like, oh, well, is it worth it? And I think, the mentality that you have around this is really, really, really important. Not everyone can have it, but if you could, that would be the gold standard.
But I think that also comes from like many years of going through it, like my kind of being the journey, not just throughout the past sort of 6 months with Autonomy, but previously to that, it was a case of I used to like eat a lot, train hard. So then I was probably like my biggest. And then I started losing, I wanted to like really train hard and trim down because when my sister got married, and then it sort of like plateaued, then came back up. And then I was like, something's got to change again. Like, I don't like being this size. And then I was like, you know what, my goal in mind, this is where I want to be. And I think if you've got that goal, it's solidified, then you will really reach it if you completely keep it at the forefront of your mind. You haven't got to go like 100% go like hard as, but if you can just remain on course and think and just keep it in mind that, you know what, like, why am I doing this? Like each day or each week, just sort of like have a chat and be like, you know what, it's coming good. And that's why I think those daily check-ins, like weigh-ins, the weekly progress pictures, like if you ever think that, oh, you know what, like I think I've gotten enough, but when you start to look back at those pictures and then you see that and you're like, holy crap, like this is what I can achieve in like, let's say 6 weeks. What can I achieve in another 6 weeks? Like when you see those and then you look at yourself, that keeps you accountable and you go, there's so much more that I can do.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that can actually bring you back, pull you back onto the main road rather than sort of like deviating away.
Yeah, you'd be quite surprised to hear that a lot of people do not take their progress pictures every single week. And I don't think it's because they don't want to see the progress that they're making. They don't want to take the picture and remind themselves where they're at because they're still quite unhappy with the way that they look. But like you said, it's such a powerful tool to be able to see that progress week on week and actually say, fuck, I'm doing a good job, or shit, that's that change in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, what's going to happen in the next 5? But when they don't take that, all they see is the scale, or all they hear is these comments. And then that becomes like their check-in with themselves, someone saying that they're skinny. Is the check-in that they always remind themselves of, as opposed to all of the things that they should be filling in daily or weekly being the real crux of the foundations of success. To be honest, my final question, just because we keep it short and sweet, is in the future we're looking at you being you're gonna never need coaching again with anybody, because that's what we do, Autonomy. What do you think is like the biggest struggle that you feel is going to be when you're looking at maintaining this for the next 20 years? How are you viewing that?
That's a deep question, because we're actually just about to go into sort of a maintenance phase very soon.
That's good. Good timing.
Yeah, it is. The biggest struggle that I think that I'm gonna with that one is a case of understanding like how much is enough on the plate. Like I already know, obviously from I'll be able to see all that, but sometimes like the eye can also be deceiving. So it's a case of having to learn how to really pick up those differences, because I don't want to be using a scale for life. And obviously that's part of this whole thing, is a case of that we can be seeing this from the eye, we can be, you know what, that's enough, like I'm full. And I think that I've picked up a lot in terms of when my body's telling me that, you know what, this is enough, like this is where we eat to. So that we've kind of gotten to a good point, like even mentally, like I can realize that myself that, okay, this is enough. Or sometimes even if with what I am eating, sometimes I'm getting full on that, and I'm just like, that just shows me that, you know what, I've actually come a long way, because before I'd eat like 1.5, 2 times all of that, and I'd be like, I can still carry on.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely critical. I think that we speak about this often in the team meeting, and we speak about this with the cultural background, is that or anybody, to be honest, you get two types of people. One, the conditioning that when you were younger you got told to finish the plate, and then you get the other conditioning, which is eat till you're full, which is relatively a new term for most modern new families. It's like a Western term for kids that don't are quite picky. But you got most of us over here. I'm in this camp too, where for me, I struggled a long time to not finish a plate because either you're not going to get your money's worth, or you got something in the back of your head, which is normally your parents saying, you need to eat this.
Otherwise you don't get a snack or something. Yeah, you don't get this
Yeah, yeah, you
dessert.
don't get it, so you don't get dessert. Yeah, and actually, the latter part of the autonomy journey, probably the last two months, we really zero in on making sure that you're honoring these hunger signals. Like you said, your eyes will always be, sometimes your eyes are bigger than your belly, but also we never know what's going on from a restaurant perspective or where you're eating. And if you're not using the scale, then what have we got to kind of use as our metric? And we are the metric. Your body is a beautiful thing, better than any AI system or anything that we could ever create. It's already created for us to tell us how much that we need. And when we choose to listen to those signals of like, okay, now I'm 80% full, or I feel like quite full, and you choose to move that conditioning away and just throw it in the bin, and then just listen to the insides, you'll never have an issue staying in shape, because your body will tell you, and if you do that consistently, you get more in tune with it. And some days you'll be way more hungry than others, and some days it won't go to plan in that, especially in that learning phase. But we've got people now who have moved completely from tracking to now just having routine, liking protein, carbs, and veggies at most meals, having some nice snacks because they've gone through that time period of tracking and understanding food. But now they're in a point where if they feel full, they will stop and put the knife and fork down, as opposed to get that money's worth. And I think that is probably the biggest differentiating factor. If you're looking at one thing that you want to, outside that and activity, like you staying on top of your steps and moving, I think if you can nail those two things, you'll have never an issue staying in shape for life. Because if you can listen to your body, then it'll tell you exactly what you need for homeostasis. That's what the body wants. The body wants to stay in balance and stay at the same place it's at right now, and it'll do a blooming good job at telling you.
And that's exactly where, obviously, that's the end goal. That's obviously where we want to reach, just so we stop having to, like, as I think it's what you guys have mentioned, like previously, it's like, look, you don't want to stay in a diet. You don't want to, like, you're in this for a diet of now, but not long term. Like, how are we going to keep it at this phase and everything? So, and that's what we want to look to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really good way to leave that podcast there. So thank you very much for coming on, Suraj. I really appreciate it, and hopefully a lot of people got some value from that.
No, I hope so too. And obviously, anyone who's got any questions, like Nathan's like talks and stuff, like just book a session in with him. He's really open, and if anyone else needs any like questions answered, just drop a comment and stuff, and then I'll be happy to even help out Nathan.
Yeah, and like a shameless plug as well, for people that are going and wanting some entertainment at their weddings. Where can they find your page, what you do? Because I'm watching the videos thinking, looks like a decent night out, that does, and it's a wedding.
Yeah, so obviously Nathan's already got the Instagram handle, but that's at Suj, so it's SUJDESAI 93. Otherwise, my team is called Beats by Lions. Check us out. One of the biggest Indian drum companies in the UK, performing at weddings like each and every weekend. So yeah, if you want to rave, hit us up.
That's perfect. I'm always up for one of those. So if I can get some invites to some weddings, I'm still waiting for the
We're waiting for the one to Dubai.
Yeah, I mean, if you can come out here, that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
That's great. All right, mate. Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me on.